are live.
Nobody's here.
That makes a lot of sense.
I'm sharing it. My mom called me. Hey, Mom.
Hey, mom.
Oh, we got somebody. Hey, Sushi. Hola.
Hey, y'all. Are you ready? Hi, y'all.
Hey.
And that was Rebelde Soy by Son La Lucha. You can look them up. It's a Son Jarocho collective by some homies. And once again, we are Fernie Mac and Rebeltosa, and this is Friends to the Left. Every Wednesday at 4 p.m. on WDYO. You know what's up?
What's up, y'all?
Yeah, what's up? So, what's the topic today, though?
What is that like?
Are you angry? Are you pissed?
I'm a little pissed.
What are you
It's
pissed
got
about?
me tired. Why am I pissed?
What are you angry about? Let it all out.
It's so hard to talk about anger, but I'm pissed to see a lot of people going through it. I'm pissed that every single week we got stories where, sometimes people think they're very like unique situations, but we end up finding out it's going on everywhere.
Yeah, we find out that we're all imploding. Like all of our movements are imploding. From the inside out. We're seeing that the real enemy is getting away with absolutely anything. We're seeing people die on work sites, and we see that the employers don't ever face consequences. They don't care. They don't care to say it, to keep it nice and clean because we're on air. And this is all I think that we were thinking about, and I feel like we touched a real topic for us, right? Anger.
Yeah. So it's so hard to talk about.
We're gonna talk a little bit about anger and about the different phases of anger, how it can be basically it can be a tool to build powerful movements, or if it's not channeled the proper way, it can also be what ends our movements. you
It
know.
can be a huge distraction.
And so what have we been talking about lately, for anybody who's new, for anybody who hasn't listened to our show before?
What have we been talking
What are
about
some of the
lately?
things?
You want a quick like recap on
Yeah, let's do it.
the last few weeks' events? We're always talking about collectivism. We're always talking about individuality. It's funny because I was talking to some folks the other day, and they were talking about Into the Wild, and they had the same frustrations with the movie that we had, but they were definitely talking about it from a different context. And I was able to say, like, yeah, we chatted about that on the radio, and kind of like the issues of, you know, how you want to make change. Like, you are so right to be angry. Christian, you know, Alexander Supertramp, the character or real life person, you know, burned his money, went on the road, and like exited society, but had some really great points as to what was going on.
So for anybody who hasn't watched the movie, like we talked about it at some point, Into the Wild. It's about a rich kid that basically burns his money. He's like, I'm gonna go and travel in a van all across the country. It was very inspiring for many people.
Yeah.
He had some right ideas, but at the same time, he didn't do anything to do anything, right?
His
like he
anger
actually
did not change his reality. His anger didn't change anybody else's.
nothing.
He changed his own way, but like you see where that led.
It's a lot of wasted anger.
Yeah.
And it's like when we're expressing, right? We've been talking about individualism and collectivism, and why we actually need collectivism to get the things that we really want in life, like to get those things that will really satisfy us and make us happy, right? Like for all of our communities. And even more so because we are collective creatures. Our nature is actually being with each other, and we forget about that all the time. We forget that we are part of nature. We forget that we are basically just animals that have language and that need each other in order to be able to survive in the wild, right? Like what happens when you have an animal that was raised in captivity? Like if you bring them back into the wild, they're not going to be able to actually survive, because all of those different skills that they learn to survive in their specific environment, they learn them from each other. They learn them from their their communities, and so do we, right? So we need skills to survive. We need each other to survive, and also we need each other, and we need to act together to actually get those things that we really want, to get water in Jackson, Mississippi, in Flint, Michigan, to get water in Latin America, to get the empire, all of our countries,
housing,
to get free stuff, to get all these different things. We need each other. Like we cannot have any shortcuts to it. But so we're talking about right now, it's like, okay, we have already talked about the fact that we definitely need to switch from being individuals to collectivism, to even some of the aspects in which individualism shows up in spaces, whether it's like, tokenization, or like interpreting, like making
epistemology, what we talked about last week.
Yes, like making blanket statements about
a mass group of people.
Yes, about oppression based on individual experience.
We're definitely more interconnected. What's that word? Intersectionality that we went through intersectionality last week and what that really looks like. And we are connected on different levels,
Absolutely. And so
Go ahead.
No. I mean, and so we were also talking when, okay, we're all on the same page. We believe collectivism is the way to go, and we need to act together. We need to develop processes in which, we get over ourselves and we, go with the collective. We are, join an organization that is democratic. But that's hard though.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Can you pass me that piece of paper right there? Actually?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the hard thing. Like we've got all these things in front of us, and we got a bunch of angry people. Maybe they're angry enough to go sit by themselves because they don't know how to properly express it and lash it out, or maybe your anger takes you to action and you just end up, you're blowing up in somebody's face. And there's so many ways it can go. There's so many ways to express your anger. But in terms of us organizing in the community we share, and the things that we talk about every week, which is building our community to work together. And we say it every week. We're not pros. You're just walking through our process and us just deep diving into the things that we do every day. But as far as anger goes, I feel like it's one of the biggest gaps in communication. It's hard to identify the root of anger a lot of times. It's hard to say, you know, everything is going on, life is expensive, people are sick, I don't have insurance, blah, 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 blah.
I'm pissed.
And with all these things happening at the same time, it is hard to like identify, like, this is the thing, this is the priority, this is where I need to focus this frustration.
It may be a combination of many different things.
Yeah. But, when we get to that point where we talk directly to, okay, why am I stressed right now? Am I stressed because I'm going to work, or am I stressed because, I know that the amount of hours I'm going to work is not paying enough?
Yeah.
And that is two different distinctions. You might go into this job and you're like, I got to see these people. Or maybe, whether it's the people or not, like maybe you just know at the end of the day, you're not going to go home with enough to keep it going, or it's not really providing that stability that you want. So, diving deeper into that anger, seeing where those feelings actually take you, and acting out of that.
Absolutely.
Instead of that first reaction.
I mean, the thing is, like, anger is not in itself something bad. Like, anger is one of those feelings that I had to learn to control and had to learn to channel. But anger can be what fuels a whole organization. Yeah. Like, I mean, one of the things that I say, like, for fact, it's one of the things that you can expect is that if you're talking to a group of oppressed people, of a group that is living in this society at any level, right, of oppression, right, we know that there are folks who have experienced it like from much closer than others. But if you are talking to people who are oppressed, who are not millionaires, who are part of an oppressed identity, you're pissed. Like, we're all angry. Like, that's one thing that unites all oppressed people in the world. Like, we're all angry. Mm-hmm. So in order to build a fighting organization, we need to channel that anger. Yeah. But it has to be coupled, right? And that's a very tricky thing, because the anger can either be used to canalize a fighting organization, and like just finding out why your friend, why your coworker, why your neighbor is like angry at you. I mean, it's angry at and join forces. But it can also be manipulated by the enemy, right? Because we are playing the same game and they are seeing all the chess pieces, right? They understand how the game works, and so they get to misdirect people's anger, crossing division, and ultimately who wins? Not us. No. What are some of the examples? How have you dealt with anger? Because I feel like you're so chill though. Yeah. Like, you're so calm. I cannot even imagine you angry.
My last therapist, like the first thing that like day one, she was like, we only have so much time as far as the amount of sessions you have. Like, what is the one thing you want to focus on in life right now? And I told her anger. And yeah, I keep cool, I'm calm. It's like we've talked about, like, anger is like difficult, it's complex. Like, I think I've always understood that it's like hard to identify and like see, where does my anger need to go? Because there's a whole lot of things contributing, and a lot of times I think I've seen more examples of people displacing that anger. One example, I think I told you about my buddy earlier. Basically, we're at this really small cookout, not too many people there. It's Nashville. You got tourists in their Airbnbs running around looking for a party or something like that. And these two folks come up, and they're just like, "Hey, we're new to town, blah blah blah, just hanging out." And we're all we're just like, yeah, whatever, we're outside, yeah, let's have a chat. So then they just start giving us all these like generalizations they had about the South, and these things about police officers and this and that, and like, we didn't like fully get into it, but there was like some kickback. They'd say something and we're like challenging their perspective, but not really displaying like, yo, I'm pissed at you right now, but just kind of showing like, you got your opinion, like we were open to that debate or whatever. But it just got to a point where I was done talking to them, and I had a buddy who kept on going in with them, and I was just like, you're wasting your time. You might as well kick him out of the yard. But my buddy walks away from them. He goes to another friend of ours, so innocent, sitting there doing nothing. And he takes his anger out on him, just like telling him how he looks silly and blah, blah, blah. Like, just talking trash for no reason. And I saw what was going on, so I'm like, I go up to him and I tell him, like, yo, you're not mad at our friend here. Like, you're pissed at them, and you don't want to, like, just trash them right now. And I understand why you don't want to do that. Like, there's a certain bit of wisdom. Like, it was a sunny day, folks were drinking. Like, he was trying to keep his cool, but like, you don't need to go take it out on your buddy right here. And I feel like
maybe it was too intimidating to go and call out the tourists.
Maybe.
Were they intimidating?
No. They were cops, though. I would say.
Oh, they were cops. Oh my God, that is intimidating. No, I mean, they were cops.
Yeah.
So okay, a bunch of tourist cops from elsewhere.
Yeah.
Came to Nashville. They were talking. SHIT about the South.
Sugar honey iced tea.
Sugar honey iced tea about the South, and then they were just pissing off your friend, and then your friend basically like just goes and takes it out on another friend that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and that's like kind of what I'm talking about, like that displaced anger, because anger is something we do need to get out. Like, I don't know.
It will come out.
Yeah, if you block it, if you cap yourself off as far as expression goes, like. These things are primal aspects of us. Like,
absolutely.
We can beat our chest. We can go play basketball. We can go do whatever that exertion looks like. But sometimes it needs to come from your mouth. You need to express like, yo, I'm mad. Like,
I'm pissed.
Yes. And my buddy needed that. And me, I'm very cool to just walk away from somebody. Like, I don't have to keep any. But not everybody's going to do that. So how do we handle that? If you really want that engagement, like, how do you express that?
Or how do you direct that? And so part of like, when we're talking about how to talk to a worker, how to talk to a coworker, a neighbor that you're trying to organize, right? So you first start the conversation, and this is like, imagine that you are having some tea or going to their house. You have some space to talk to them for like at least an hour, right? And you first want to introduce yourself to the conversation. And then the second step, I like to say, is like you need to find out why they're mad. Because as I was saying, any oppressed persons, we're all mad, we're all pissed. And our job, if we're trying to organize, build a fighting organization, build a fighting community, we need to know why every single person that we want to organize is mad about, because it might be different than us. And then once they tell me, like when I say, hey, what is one thing, if you had the power, what is one thing that you would like to change in your workplace tomorrow or in your apartment complex? Maybe they say healthcare, right? I really wish I had healthcare, and this restaurant is not giving it to me. Then what I do is agitating, right? And like when you agitate, you don't necessarily like, it's not just inflammatory when we're talking about organizing. It's also validating. It's like, yo, I see you.
Yeah.
It's not fair, because a lot of the times, like, we don't know what we're angry about, like what we were saying. And that exposes us to be misdirected. We need to know that we're mad about the fact we don't have healthcare at work. That's what makes us the most mad about going to work. And so, and then we need to know that that's not fair, that we are like, that basically like, we are, we deserve to have healthcare. We deserve to be safe. And so once the person tells me like, oh, I wish I had healthcare, that's my gift as an organizer. And I want to channel that into action.
Yeah.
And so then I say things like, you don't have healthcare? So what do you do? Like, what do you have to, like, what do you do when you get sick? Like, doesn't it worry you? What happens if, if an accident happens, we are all human beings. We all get sick, right? Yeah. It's messed up that you don't have these. You deserve to feel safe. You deserve to be taken care of, right? You work all these hours. You produce all of these for your boss. You deserve healthcare.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we agitate, right? Like when we literally say, I see you. I see why you are mad.
I see what you're
and you deserve better. And so then the person realizes that, oh, they're not imagining things. And so they are not, a boss isn't going to come and say like, the reason why we don't have enough money is because, we have all these, immigrants coming into the plant, or like, I don't know, we have like, you can get misdirected the anger. So like what we do, once again, in organizing, for anybody who just comes, you find out what people are mad about, and then you definitely like make sure that they know it's their right to be mad about, they know who to be mad about, and like they have that hope then after that things can get better.
Yeah.
Right?
We gotta find ourselves in agreement somewhere. But
we sometimes don't have that.
No. I don't know. I mean, let's Yeah, we've all been there. If you work jobs, you've been mad at your coworkers, colleagues, etc. And I mean, honestly, those are clearly the people that we need to be organizing with. Those are the people we need to find some commonality with. And I understand why it gets hard to organize places. You probably had some beef, but gosh, how many days have you shown up to work mad at somebody, or just ready to pick a fight with that one coworker because you couldn't get that frustration out elsewhere?
Or maybe like you're angry that nobody's gonna take your shift if you work in a restaurant.
Yeah.
Maybe you're angry that you always take people's shifts, and that maybe nobody takes your shift.
Yeah.
And maybe you should not be mad at your coworker for not taking your shift.
Yeah.
Maybe you should
Why
be mad
would
at your
you
boss.
take that out on your coworker who also has a life? I mean, there's a company with a lack of policies, or policies they're not
Short
actually enacting
staffing.
on. Yeah, I mean, whose fault is it that there's nobody to cover? It's not on you.
Absolutely.
It's not on your coworker necessarily. If you don't take my shift, Cecilia, I get it.
I won't take your shift.
Yeah, I won't take your shift now. Who do we? Yeah, we don't work together, y'all. But you know, in this hypothetical world,
In a hypothetical world, I
Yeah.
will not take your
you
shift.
would not take my shift. I mean,
Maybe.
maybe you would. I mean, if I
Let's
needed
put a pin on that.
if I needed the dollars, I would take your shift. But if I didn't, I'd be like, yeah, you need to go talk with the boss. Like,
Absolutely.
why ain't boss?
Back to anger. You want me to show your little graphic?
Yeah, show me a little graphic. It's not my little graphic. This is another one from the Charlie Fund. I think they do some really cool stuff as far as expanding communication, learning how to grow, like, you know, the love and the care that you have and how to express it. But one of their more recent charts is about anger. So you've got anger in the center, and this is going to be all about learning how to better communicate your needs, where you're coming from, because sometimes we get angry and then we go that trauma response, and it's just a very natural thing. It's not something we're going to communicate, you know. I don't think I've ever said, well, yeah, you know, sometimes I'll say like, hey, I'm going to be distant for a while, but like I think more often than not I would just go and lean into that distance rather than being able to communicate it. And you deserve that time. I deserve that time.
You deserve it.
Yeah, thank you. But you know, you've got anger there in the center, and out of anger you might find yourself frustrated. You might react as distant. Anger might exhaust you. Maybe it is about jealousy. So let's just look at the distant, because I feel like that shows a lot of, it exposes proximity things. So you in the workplace, you with your family. In the top right corner, we've got anger, and then anger leading to distance. Out of that distance, what does that look like, or what does that sound like? Does that sound like hurt? You know, I'm feeling hurt, so I'm going to be distant from you, or I've suddenly gone numb within myself. My feelings are low. I don't have that much. I don't know. I just don't have juice for the social things or emotional things, so I've gone numb, and that has caused me to be distant in my anger. A lot of these things cap us out, but we don't want to stay in these places. Like, we want to acknowledge it. We want to acknowledge, like, okay, right now I'm angry, and with everybody in my life or in my workplace, I've gone distant. But we don't want to stay in that place. You know, whether our objective is to organize or just have healthy relationships, we want to be able to extend from that, not necessarily for the goal of happiness, because all of these things are, their emotions are going to come and go. But you do want some stability. You want some control of self. You don't want, you know, your emotions to take you out of just being able to show up somewhere.
But it's so hard, though. It's hard. I mean, gosh.
What is hard about it?
Oh, control it. I mean, I remember,
Okay.
you know, I struggled with PTSD for a long time, for many years. I, you know, went to therapy and.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, therapy. And it was hard. Like, at one point, like, I remember just feeling it so hard in my body, and people would say, control yourself, control your emotions. And like, to me, I mean, I was just filled with so much rage that I was like, I don't think you understand how it feels in my body.
Yeah.
To be angry. Like, it just feels like it's covering every part of like my body, and it needs to get out. You know, the triggers, like how we react with triggers to different situations. I mean, us that we are, you know, like many people that come into the movement too, right? Like, we are similar in the sense that, you know, we're usually here because we're agitated, because we're pissed, because somebody organized us and channelized our anger, and now we're doing something with it. But that doesn't mean that we're healed.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the things and issues happen in the movement. One of the biggest obstacles, right, to be successful and have collective spaces is all of those things that come out because of trauma, because of people reacting out of trauma response, being on trauma mood. Maybe somebody does something to you that reminds you of something, and like the way that you are reacting is not proportional to whatever happened in the moment, but you are reacting with years and years and years of baggage, and you're reacting to something, and it might look like an overstatement of harm or like an overreaction. And it can look like just furthering the cycle of unhealthy dynamics, unhealthy patterns.
Would you say that, because you said that, like, what's difficult about anger, like controlling it? Would you say like emotions like happiness or sadness, like maybe you have a better grapple, or you know how to, I don't know, soothe yourself when feeling those emotions or refocus?
I think clarity has been helpful. So the first thing that my therapist like obviously made me do with like dialectical behavioral therapists was identify your emotions, identify what action like somebody did that made you mad, and then identify your need. Like what is something that you need in the moment that you are not getting, right? Hi Nelson. Hola Nelson. Nelson's awesome. So like being able to put a name to an anger, being able to completely like actually like point out like why I'm angry about has been very empowering, right? And it's something that we want to do when we're organizing. We want to, as organizers, we don't want to manipulate anybody's anger. We are not the boss, like we're not the enemy. What we do want to do is bring clarity and being like, okay, what, like, you ask those guiding questions. What do you want to change?
Clarity.
And then you get, well, what I want to change is this. And then it was like, okay, that's what you're mad about. Let's point it out. Let's validate. Like, you are right to be mad about that. And now, this is the clarity. This is what you're angry about. It is unfair. And this is what you need to do if you want to change your situation.
Absolutely. I feel like I could see somebody, or so many of us, saying, I'm mad because I had a really long day. But like, if we were to really get some clarity, what happened in that day? Well, my lunch was nice. Oh, so you weren't mad at lunchtime, but you were mad. Oh, well, I showed up to work and I wanted to get this raise and blah, 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 blah. The bus fare went up, price of gas went up. So there are these, many small things. But, looking at like what was really impactful, through that day.
Yeah, being able to point out like what actually about your day, what made you mad, like what are you, like what is those things that you really want to change in your workplace, and that's like what you need to be focused on, right? Like an unfocused anger, like an anger. If you are not able to identify why you're mad about, then you can actually end up with some of the same patterns I was mentioning, right? Like, or if you cannot identify your triggers, if you cannot identify how you're actually gonna be able to control them and be able to get back to center, analyze the situation for what it is, not for your, not reacting with your baggage. Those are all key things if we're gonna be having collective spaces. What do you think, though? What do you think?
What do I think? I think this is such a hard conversation, and I know, like, when I met Cecilia, a little backstory. When I met Cecilia, when you meet friends, you meet somebody new, you talk about the things you're into, music, books, whatever. But somehow we like kept getting on the topic of nonviolent communication. I don't know why we talked about that so much when we first met each other. Obviously, like, we both had like tried to work through some things, and had to figure it out. And I think we both got that book probably through therapy session. Yeah. And again, just because we're talking about therapy does not mean that we don't think people should get out of that self-help loop. Maybe we are being a little hard on people, but we're saying put some things into practice. So this book, Nonviolent Communication, has obviously guided both of us. It's something that we take in our actions, I guess monthly, daily, however often, frequently. And kind of like what you were saying before, like identifying the issues, identifying the frustrations, but in communicating your anger, As far like here's a simple practice that I think everybody can use in identifying your anger. Past that, okay, you need to go communicate to somebody. Away from like the organizing. Maybe it's an interpersonal relationship, relative, family member, close coworker, whoever. Not just going up to them and being like, "Yo, you piss me off. You're so dumb. You're so stupid. You suck at doing this thing." Uh, but instead, changing that and letting them know how it affects you. So, not saying, "Hey, you're so dumb," but maybe saying, "Hey, when you don't do things the way you're supposed to, it affects our working relationship. When you don't, submit this thing on time, like that falls on me to be even more responsible for something." Or, "Hey, uh, if you don't close the refrigerator door, the electric bill goes up." I don't know. Any of these things.
That felt personal.
Yeah, that felt personal. I feel like it's relatable.
Yeah.
But yeah, relearning how to communicate that anger, because I don't know. I grew up like, let's just thinking about those cops. Going back to that story in the beginning, when I was a kid, not that I was talking to cops or anything like that, or but if like I had dealt with some very patriotic, like I don't know, punk or whatever.
Patriotic punks.
Yeah, who's just like being racist and saying stupid stuff. Like when I was younger, it was much easier to fight that person. Very easily, like very quick release. Boom, boom, boom. I feel better. Um, and that never really taught them anything about their communication. It never taught them anything about what they were actually saying. It just showed them they knew where my trigger was, and I didn't mind. But my hope is, now that I learn more about the communication aspect of it, how to really vouch for myself and really point out those needs. Because why are you hitting somebody? It could be for anything, but when you speak it and you say it and you identify it for both you and them, that kind of creates hopefully some accountability, or at least the boundary that is needed to be set.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And boundaries are important too. Like, I mean, in a community, in a collective, or in an organization, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to get along with absolutely everybody. We know that it's messy. We know that we can put boundaries, but we also know that we have a vision, right? Like, because we are going back, right, to organizing. Because, this is WDYO. This is workers' dignity, and we are organizers. So, we have a vision. We know what we want. Like whether you are somebody in Jackson, Mississippi, and you want water, or in Flint, Michigan, you want water, or you want some carbon plant out of your neighborhood. You have a goal. That's what you all want. So how can we work together so we all get those things that we need?
Yeah.
Like, even if there are certain aspects of ourselves that we're still not ready to fully deal with, what are some boundaries that we can put with each other so we can still be part of the community?
Yeah.
Like I said, like, how do we get over ourselves? It's going to be one of the most difficult parts of any type of attempt to work as a united front, as a collective. Shoot.
How do we, I don't know, if you rephrase it a little bit, like what do you need that we keep on working together? If we do have some lines somewhere, some areas where our work does not align, but like what we have together is even bigger. It's so much bigger than the two of us.
Absolutely.
Where does that need to go?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, what you were saying also just makes me think about, like, okay, so there's one of the objectives is that we need to be able to work together towards a goal.
Yeah.
We need to be able to understand why we're angry, and understand, like, who is to blame for the anger.
Yeah.
And so then when we're talking about our own community, like, what do we do, right? Like, how do we address violence within our own community? Because sometimes members of our community do make us mad, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we need to look beyond. And I'm an abolitionist myself. Are you an abolitionist?
I'm an abolitionist.
You're an abolitionist.
We're
right?
abolitionists. Friends to the left.
Friends to the left, WDYO, WD, we all believe, our organization believes in the in abolishing jails, prisons, the carceral system, the police, All these systems that honestly are only there to protect property.
Yeah.
But one thing that we're talking about a lot is accountability, right? And how do we keep each other accountable? How do we understand who do we need to work together?
Yeah.
And who to direct our anger to? And how do we expect governments, our government, our city, whatever, to abolish the police when we don't even know what the alternative is? We don't know how to let's say the police and jails are abolished tomorrow. How do we deal with the violence that we experience in our communities, right?
How are we healing each other, taking care of each other, holding each other accountable, all those things you're saying?
And it's not easy.
No.
I mean, because basically what we're doing, we were talking about representative democracy before. We are outsourcing democracy. We're leaving all of the hands, we're leaving everything, all the responsibility on a single individual to represent us, which makes no sense. Real democracy takes the participation of everybody into making collective decisions, into assemblies, in councils, everybody, right? Same thing with accountability. We're basically outsourcing accountability to the police. And how good what has that served us? Has that worked?
I mean, no, it hasn't. That is the dependent structure. And I'm not saying dependent, not everybody is dependent on the police, but as far as people can imagine, it's like, who's gonna look out for us? But like, I don't know, what does it look like to jump into I'm not gonna say a new system, but a new structure or a new way of like some kind of self-governance. Go ahead.
No.
I was just gonna say that takes a lot of trust. That takes a lot of personal responsibility, not just for you to, the individual can go, just go be free. If I mess up here, I'll go there, and hopefully I don't mess up there as well. But to actually like build a place and like make it sustainable, it requires like a process that we all trust and believe in.
I mean, it takes work, right? That's the point. That accountability, like real accountability, we cannot lead this one entity, which now is generating this huge like, power imbalance. Becomes kind of like an abusive codependent relationship.
Yeah.
Because then they bully the hell out of our neighborhoods, and then whenever you actually need them, filing a police report of some sort, like you don't see them for days. They don't even do it. They don't investigate cases that they should be, actually investigating for community safety. So, I mean, if we really want accountability, we gotta do it ourselves. It's just like if we really want democracy, we better get used to participating, to forming assemblies, to collective decision making. So we need to learn how to deal with each other.
Yeah. What's the? I mean, I know we both know. But like, if you're not hitting on this one version, like, what's the best way that you've seen, I don't know, some collective accountability, like people really like sticking up for each other and saying, okay, I'm not going to call the cops, or I'm not going to call this person on you, but I'm going to take some responsibility and not just like leaving a punishment, but like being your accountability, being in partnership with your growth.
I feel like that's a really hard thing to do. Like we're still learning how to do this right, but I do appreciate the concept of like transformative justice.
Weird. Okay, that's where we're going. I didn't know if you had any other ones, but yeah.
I mean, there is the restorative justice, right? That we are, you address it. The person who was harmed with the person who harmed, they talk to each other, and they are, some of the points is to be able to reconcile their relationship. But transformative justice goes a little bit further. And it goes into saying, okay, there is some harm that happened. But what are the conditions, the community conditions that allow for this to happen? And how can we prevent this from happening again?
Okay.
Also acknowledging that sometimes we cannot go back to how it used to be, because how it used to be
never served us.
No, the conditions, like we live in if we're all pissed, if everybody's mad, then maybe the conditions are not very fair. And maybe we need to start looking at what aspects in our culture are replicating some of those, like the agenda, or are delivering the agenda of the oppressor, right? Like, in what ways are we doing the oppressor's work for them?
Yeah. We're doing their work when we call the police.
Well, definitely we are. We are definitely doing their work with the calling police.
No. I'm gonna rate it back and be more serious. Yes, transformative justice. What you were just saying, like, it identifies the anger, like the very specific thing. Kind of like, what did you just say? You said like identifying the harm or the harmful person.
Identifying who was harmed,
Yes.
and like the condition. So like, what is it in the community itself
Yes.
that is allowing this kind of patterns or this kind of behaviors?
Yeah.
How can the community also be accountable?
Mhm.
And how can the community keep people accountable? And accountability also is about supporting the person who harmed.
Yeah.
And a step, one more step too, though. This is like a little bit. Yes, my first. This is a little bit another step, though, but in like a good process of accountability. Like, you have usually three advocates, right? You have the person supporting the survivor.
Okay.
The person supporting the person who was harmed. I mean, the person who harmed.
Okay.
And then we also have a person that is there on behalf of the community. So we've been hearing a lot of these stories, right? And like, we've been hearing a lot of the narrative has been, well, the survivors should say, like, the survivors should lead the repair process.
Do you agree?
No.
I don't agree either, but I want to tell me why.
I think the survivor has the opportunity and like their responsibility too to say like what needs to be done to repair, because obviously, like, if we don't know what we need to be better, to be whole, like we're never going to be happy. Like, we're always going to be unhappy. Nobody's going to make us, nobody can make us happy.
Yeah.
But also they,
you're saying
how
the
do you
community
feel?
needs to lead it?
The community needs to make everybody accountable there.
Gotcha.
Everybody needs to say their piece. Everybody needs to say what they need.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the community is who's gonna determine whether this is a fair thing or not. Because what happens when you're harmed? What is your first instinct? Let's say I come, I grab a chair and I smash it on you. What's your first reaction to that?
Golly.
What if I smash this chair right now?
What if you smash this chair on my face? Golly.
What do you want to do this to me? What would you want to do to me right away?
I don't even know. Like, I'm not gonna hit you with the chair. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna scream. I'm gonna shout. I'm probably gonna get whoever's inside's attention and be like, "Yo, come out here right now!
help me crush a chair on Cecilia."
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to hurt me back, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I need Cecilia to what's the word? Feel some repercussions. Understand the consequences of your actions.
You get the chair back.
You deserve the consequences.
So that's why a survivor is probably not the best person to dictate what happens, because the survivor also needs to be held accountable, because what we want is to not continue the cycle of chain, the chain of harm, right? Like, that's what prisons are for, right? Like, this is a punishment. It's like, it's retributive justice. Which basically it means like, oh, you hurt me, I hurt you. You hurt somebody in the society, we hurt you in the jail. And this is a vulnerable story. I was in an abusive relationship for about 3 years, and it was deeply abusive, right, in many different ways, in many different kinds of violence. And the person, one of the reasons that they were they had all this anger built up is that they grew up with their mom in jail. So their mom was, since they were young, the mother basically killed an abuser of hers. And so she ended up going to jail for many years. And so growing up in all that environment, like, visiting their mom in jail and then going into awful, horrible foster homes and then mental hospitals, like that took a toll on the person.
Yeah.
And so, you can see, and I'm not saying that I know the experience all hand, but like I did experience a small fraction of what it is to, like, get some of that harm, those consequences.
Yeah.
You put a person in jail that hurts the direct contact, the direct community of the person, and then like I had nothing to do with it. Like I was like, I grew up in a completely different country and I just happened to meet the person, and then I got some of that like residual harm.
Yeah.
And so we want to stop harm from happening. We want to transform our communities and relationships, transform the pain into something different. And like we know that we're never going to be back because into what it used to be, but we need to shift. We need to change into new versions of ourselves.
So again, abolish. I don't know. Fredo said abolish police, abolish ICE, abolish all these systematic things that cause more pain. Like I think the difficulty, y'all, originally we wanted to talk about forgiveness and things like that, and we decided to talk more about like the anger first. But just thinking about the story you just shared of, you see this person who went through a lifetime of pain through structures that you had no interaction with. They were forced to go through because the system was not set up to actually like take care of them or like help bring healing to that. It's just like figure it out through this, and like clearly like foster care systems just haven't been up to par.
And they're still responsible for that, right? For their anger, for their actions.
They are responsible for that. But we have to, like you were saying earlier, we also want to care for that person as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they need to be, we need to deal with each other. If we don't want jails, if we believe that, then okay, so how do we deal with each other?
If we don't want jail, we have to deal with each other. Yeah. Golly. Yeah.
I mean, we gotta deal with each other. Like, it's true.
That is the reality of it.
I mean, like most people who've been harmed, like sometimes
ready for that?
You want the other person to suffer, and maybe that's not like it's sweet, but what can make you better? Not like like that it is pleasurable to cause somebody pain, that somebody who hurt you, to cause them pain, but that's the same cause. Like we're just being cops to each other, and we need to get good at like doing it at a small scale, at a large scale. We need to be able to address conflict, leading to conflict in organizations. And as I said, just kind of like getting to the end of the hour, close to that, we talked a lot about anger and how it can be a double-edged sword. It can be a powerful fuel that builds fighting organizations, and we are able to have the clarity around it, or it can just completely destroy our attempts at collectivism. And we see that it can go both ways. Like there are so many successful organizations, and then so many that are collapsing by the day because of interpersonal conflict. So I just feel like we need to be able to talk about it, because there's just too many organizations collapsing because of these reasons.
Have you, would you say that, I don't know, getting more control of that anger and figuring out how to channel that, what does that look like for you in terms of leaning into conflict, which is necessary? If we want to actually abolish a lot of these systems and not have these codependent relationships with these systems, like you said, we're going to have to deal with each other. If we don't want a prison system, how are we going to learn how to take care of each other? We definitely need to like expand that empathy, understanding, and like you said, a process. How has that looked for you? And I know you just mentioned we're getting close to the end. So this will be my last question. But how has that looked for you in all of your organizing efforts over the years, with the, what do you call it? With it's not bartering. It is like negotiations and things like that. How has that transferred into leaning into conflict and
I think that, like, we also need to learn who do we vulnerable with. Like, I think that the negotiations that we do with a boss are completely different. Like, it's all about power, and like it's all about bringing them to the table as equals, and about power. Like, you want something from them, you gotta stay strong, and you don't really want to share too much with the boss because they're gonna use anything against you. However, with your comrades, I think that's completely different. I think that it's important to not be conflict avoidant. We need to let things out, especially when we're building, coalitions of workers across race, across gender, across age. There are tensions. Like, we cannot say that we're living in this world that is perfect. We use the perfect language, but that's not change, because we need to address that there is tensions and there are misunderstandings, there are all these different things, and we are afraid of bringing them to the table, and we stay polite, we stay close, but we need to hold responsibility for bringing things up, right? So if you never bring anything up, like, well, you had a chance to advocate for yourself and you didn't, so that's your fault. We cannot read anybody's mind. So, I mean, one of the things that I've seen it happen a lot of the times in coalitions, or, just doing the planning of like a project, we across differences, we're all sitting on the table, we all agree that the project is gonna be okay. We all say, this is great, this is great. And then we don't really dive into the project, and then, like, by the time that we're actually like getting the stuff done and we need to get dirty, then the stuff starts coming up because people cannot hold it in any longer, and then they're like, I actually hate everything about this project, or I actually not agree with this. It's like, well, we could have talked about it when the stakes were low and at the beginning, right?
I think that's one of my favorite, like, organizing quotes things, like, fight while the stakes are low. Like, bring up that silly thing that might become really obnoxious 2 weeks down the road if we don't bring it up now. Bring it up early, and be preventative about it, and that's okay. You might sound silly, but if you have that awareness, intuition, whatever, of what's to come, you might as well.
I mean, I feel like that's something that we also do a lot, like with our circle. And we started to do this here on staff, where we do feedback, right? Like, being able to give honest, direct feedback and being able to receive it is important. And we're not talking necessarily about feedback that comes into these like anonymous sheets. Like, no. Let's don't be chickens. Like, let's look at each other in the
Full
face.
Context.
Look at me in the eyes and tell me what you do not appreciate about me. Like, what am I doing that is irking you? Like, and why? And extend grace too, because it's like, it's not just about like, hey friend, like, when you like when you take all my pens, I see you holding it. When you take all of my favorite pens, like, it really bothers me, because I am actually like really special about the way that I like the pens that I use. What's going on for you when you take them? Why do you take them?
I'm sorry. I am a kleptomaniac, and just for pens, and you're just around all the time with all these pens. I think.
Well, like, those are nice pens, though.
Yeah.
Let me do this. Which I stole from Julio.
Oh, you're the kleptomaniac.
But you want to give an opportunity to express yourself, to be like, to extend grace. Not make assumptions about the other person, and then create some boundaries. That's some suggestions. Like, what would I want you to not do or do?
Sorry for always taking your pens.
Thank you.
I think maybe
you just not take them again?
I mean, if now that I know that one was taken, I will take
You can ask me first.
Oh, true. Yeah.
See, so yeah, I feel like we went into all these different directions, but clarity, ultimately being able to have clarity onto like why you're pissed is so important.
Why are you mad?
Who to be pissed about? Who do you want to work with? Who you need to work with to get the shit that you want?
You need to work with Workers' Dignity tomorrow night if you've got a wage theft case. 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Sorry, that felt like a good segue, but
I mean 7 p.m. If you want to throw down, if you have experienced wage theft, you know who to call. And so what is one last takeaway? I was like, what is your point? Give me one phrase how you want to end this. What's up?
One phrase. I don't have an issue with anger. I have an issue with displaced anger. I care a lot, and this is more for myself. If you relate to this, please hear me on it. But and you can share this and think on this, all that as well. But um, we go through a lot of our life mad about an accumulation of things when we can really dial in and like actually make change on some really big things if we like work through it and talk to each other. I can't remember the book right now, but there was a quote that said that there are a lot of issues that seem very personal that have very political origins. So that just being said, like all that individuality, your frustration, carrying it on your own, learn how to communicate it, and you'll find out who else is going through the same thing. You'll find your tribe. You'll find the people who are going to fight with you. That is my agitation.
Oh, I love the political motives, and I hope you do actually find who said the quote.
Yeah. I got it. I got the book at the house.
So I love that. I mean, I think that if we don't know where is our anger, if we don't know what we're angry about, and we don't have that clarity, somebody's gonna manipulate that anger.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be our boss, that can be a president,
Your
that
landlord.
can be a landlord, that can be so many other people that are gonna completely misdirect it. It can be Fox News,
Mm-hmm.
it can be Tommy Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's going to manipulate your feelings because they know that you're angry. They know that all oppressed people are angry.
Mm-hmm.
We should know that. We should know we're all angry.
Mm-hmm.
So we should figure out why and to who we should be angry about.
Yeah.
So also we all gotta deal with each other. So if we don't want jails, we gotta deal with each other. And I think it's time for us to finish with a song.
Yeah.
Should we play?
We should play the one we started with.
All right. So that is Rebelde Soy by Son La Lucha. Here on WDYO. Once again, I am Rebeltosa and
I am DJ Fernie Mac.
And we're friends to the left.
Thank you all for
on
being
WDYO.
here. Uh-huh. This song is so good. Excuse me. I like that we still have these. I still have some more. I can't wait to be old. I'm just like crap.
I feel you. I can't wait to be old. Why? I can't wait to be wise whenever that happens.
You can't wait to be wise?
Wise, whenever that happens.
This makes us wiser for sure. I think we're going through some really hard things, yo. Imagine like some of this stuff sitting with you in your soul for a bit, and it becomes your natural reaction, like putting it to work, like not going through that cycle, kind of like. Yeah. Sometimes, you write things down enough to where it's the first thought that you have. I had this one thing, like whenever I got anxious, I would read it to kind of create that reaction. First reaction is
like a mantra, an embodiment.
Yeah.
Like somatics.
That's how I keep calm. Like it's hard to be anxious when your first thought is, do I have control of this right now, or is it going to take some time? It's kind of hard.
Do I have control?
Yeah.
Do I throw a chair on your face?
Take off. Is this still taking on our audio? Yeah. I'll wait. I think 8 is the most people we've had watching it a single time. We're shooting out tonight.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
You're so good. And that's the good thing about showing this music is that nobody's gonna take it down.
Yeah. Maybe it gets big. Maybe I give it a lift up.
Maybe after
Maybe after a
we'll be like, yeah, they took my music.
Oh shit. We don't want that.
You gave us permission.
So I guess we can cuss on this one. If it's just this.
Yeah, we can.
Your facial reaction, like when you take a breath.
And that's it.